All right, now we're back. Now, the last couple sessions we were talking about the DE stop. In my mind, as an artist, as a fractal artist, this DE stop is gold. Understanding it is gold. Because the DE stop is going to give you the ability to have some influence over the ray tracing algorithm that goes on under the covers. But more importantly, it's going to give you the ability to optimize the quality of your Mandelbulb graphic with minimum oversampling or minimum noise, white spots. And that would also be true with black spots too. You can have all kinds of black spots because the ray tracing or the ray failed. Just depends upon how it fails. So anyway, so with an appropriate DE stop, you have a good compromise between the detail of the image, the oversampling, white, black dots, and the rendering time. That's what it comes down to. And usually what you need to do is fuss with this DE stop. You got to fuss with it. And you do what I did. You know, you get something, you get an image that you like. You crank up the resolution. Yeah, sure, it's going to take longer to render, but now in my main view, I can actually use this viewing ratio, all right, and I can really get into, I can get down deep into that Mandelbulb graphic where I can actually clearly analyze how that graphic is rendering out real close, almost like a magnifier. All right, so the technique is crank up the resolution, all right, and then use your main screen, not your navigator, to poke around here, look at what you got. If you start to see issues, all right, I don't see many issues. This is actually pretty well rendered, very nicely rendered. And I haven't even tweaked all of the ray tracing related controls. All right, but what I do is I fuss around. I say, well, let's try a DE stop of 5. And I keep my view here, all right, because I want to get a visual, or I use a screenshot so I can compare, little technique. All right, there's a DE of 5, a point on 5. All right. I'm losing some quality. There's my black dots, by the way. My black dots are actually a failed ray because it wasn't able to discern where that object is, but it decided I'm going to make that a black dot. All right. So you start at, what I do is I start at 5 or whatever, 10. And usually what I'll do is I'll kind of cut that in half and I'll render it out again. Take a look here. All right. Okay, yeah. I'll take a stopwatch and I'll see how long it takes to render. I'll keep track of that. A little bit better in here. Few little white dots, not bad. And I would say to my mind, that's probably an okay DE stop for this particular image for my particular use. Now keep in mind, if you're animating through, all right, you've got constant movement. The user doesn't really sit there and analyze it and see a white dot there. The viewer, you do, but the viewer doesn't. The problem is that when you start getting really close with your camera, you start getting artifacts and weirdness, and the light doesn't reflect well, and so on and so forth. So you want a good quality. You don't need an absolutely perfect quality. And so what I do is I just kind of mess around here. I'm going to go for a DE of 1, keep track of the rendering time, Because I say to myself, you know, if it takes 5 seconds to render, what's 5 seconds times 10,000? All right, divided by the number of minutes, divided by the number of hours, divided by the number of days. So you don't want a big, huge old rendering task, but you do want very good quality. So a DE of 1 is pretty good. I'm improved in this area here. I'm very much improved, but I probably have doubled my rendering time. And I say to myself, you know what? 2.5 was pretty good. 1's pretty good. I'm going to put that at 2, and I think I'm going to leave it at 2. Yeah, okay, not bad. And then what I'll do is I'll adjust this view ratio, and I'll take a look at that and I'll say, hey, that's pretty good. That's not bad. That's a good rendering at a good DE stop, probably with a decent rendering time, or a time that I can live with anyway. And if I really wanted to cut the rendering time down, I could probably go to 3 on this. And we'll take we'll take a look at the rendering. Probably not too bad. A 3 would probably work just fine for me here. All right, let's clean up the environment a little bit here, and I'm going to open up the project, calculate that. Now let's put all of this wonderful technique here into actual practice. I'm just rendering out at an 800 by 450. You can't see much there. So I'm going to crank this bad boy up to 4K. All right. That's a 4K rendering. All right, here we go. All right. All right. Now, I'm at a DE stop of 1.5. That thing took 2.5 minutes. I'm looking through this now, and I'm looking for white dots. That's the first thing I don't want. These white dots are okay. That's part of the pattern of this particular Mandelbulb object. That's not a white dot that I'm concerned about. Wow. Look, I mean, right in here, in this black area here, that's where you're going to find most of the evidence of white dots. This is pretty good. Look at that detail. Now this is 4K. Oh, here we go. Nice dark area. Look at that. I have no white dots in there. Oh, there's one right there. All right, a couple right in here. This 1.5 DE stop is actually pretty good, but 2.5 minutes to render it. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to end this session here, and I am going to set the DE stop to 3. And in between the sessions, I'm going to render it to save you the time. And so we're going to come back to the next session when I've completed the rendering of this same image at 4K at a DE stop of 3. All right, I'll see you in the next session.